Connect MKE is sponsored by U.S. Bank. There is some good news in the fight against crime in Milwaukee. Violent crime, including homicides, burglaries, and thefts, were down in 2024. But challenges remain, especially when it comes to auto-related crimes, including carjackings and auto theft. Let's learn more about what's behind the numbers and what the Milwaukee Police Department is doing to continue to make our community safer. Joining us is Milwaukee Police Chief Jeffrey Norman. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here.
Let's start with the good news first. When we look at the reduction in violent crime, that reduction is pretty significant, especially when we look, for example, at homicides, down 23% from 2023. Non-fatal shootings dropped 24%. What is behind those reductions? What's behind the numbers?
So I always like to start off by saying I'm very proud of the work that the men and women of the Milwaukee Police Department is accomplishing, ensuring that there is that urgency, that passion to ensure that we are being responsive to the crime and also being proactive. And so there's a lot of great investigations going on. I mean, our clearance rates are above the national average. There is a lot of good work in regards to being going after those who are doing the most harm in our community, because that we know is going to have an impact in those particular numbers. But we also should be very thankful of our community. We work with our community. We understand that there is a lot of to gain in regards to work with our community-based organizations. We work with the different governmental entities in regards to credible messengers and whatnot. So we know that there's a lot of great collaboration going on, that we all are being instrumental in regards to impacting the non-fatal shootings and the homicides in our city.
One thing that we do know is that those numbers, while they're down significantly, and we need to recognize that, those numbers are still above really those pre-COVID numbers when we were at 99 homicides.
Right.
How do we work to continue to get those numbers down? They went up pretty quickly,
right,
but it seems like there are a lot of efforts we're going to have to undertake to get them back down.
Right. Well, sometimes you can look at it from the standpoint it's easy to gain weight, but it's not easy to lose. There's a lot of things that was the perfect storm for 2020. There was issues in regards to our societal fabric of engaging with each other. The stay-at-home really did a lot of unfortunate trauma on a lot of individuals at all levels, not only just our adolescents and teens, young adults, and even adults. A lot of mental health. We all know that during those particular years, because of the fear of being stay-at-home, a lot of firearms were purchased. And so there is a lot of unfortunate confluence of, factors that really, the rise in crime took just, unfortunately, too high. Looking at it from the standpoint that it takes a collaborative approach, it's a comprehensive approach to be able to impact. It's about education, it's about letting people understand the responsibility of firearms, but also working on those issues of mental health, working on those issues of those who are dealing with trauma. Our biggest factor that is the driver of the non-fatal shootings and homicides, or just violence in our city, is poor conflict resolution. So there's individuals who still are using firearms or violence to resolve their issues between one another, which is unfortunately something that came out of our pandemic. But I always challenge the narrative about what was like before the pandemic to what is now, because the challenge I say is anything normal? Is the industry normal? Is the business, people are now calling people back to work. There is a new normal that we have to deal with after 2020. So just seeing how we can navigate to be able to say, continue to push forward, having accomplishments, we're going in the right direction, and I have nothing but hope for 2025.
One of the things that I know you have been particularly concerned about is the number of youth who have access to weapons and the violence that comes from that. You mentioned credible messengers. What kinds of other things is the department working on with community organizations to begin to tackle that issue?
Yeah, so we are definitely working with our government entities. The Office of Community Wellness and Safety is one of the other particular groups where we are doing a lot of impact. I know that we have worked with our MPOW, the Milwaukee Police Athletic League, Engagement by You. Some that our commitment to engagement is important to help change that narrative. One of the things that's the unfortunate output of the COVID is that there was a lot of community organizations where we have accessibility. The Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA closed down. Kids still need something to do, and we always talk about that. If kids don't have positive things to engage in, they're going to find their own things to engage in, and it's not going to be nice. Children with firearms don't get them from the local stores. It's from someone negligence, and sometimes we have found there have been individuals providing them with these firearms, and that is unacceptable on all levels. But that's where we come in to have these conversations, discussions in regards to ensuring what is your kid doing, how are we securing our homes. Don't leave guns unattended in our vehicles. Don't let these particular enticements be available to our youth, because unfortunately they don't think things through, and it's going to be a little too late when there are, again, the mishandling of guns. So we have a challenge, and also we have a lot of accidental firearm usage by our young ones, where some of those homicide numbers are unfortunate outputs of a youth shooting another youth because they found an unattended gun on a sofa or on a table, and this 3-year-old thought it was a toy, with disastrous results.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some auto-related crime?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are seeing an increase, about 2% increase in the number of stolen vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
but we're also seeing an increase around 11% for carjackings.
Right. So I would say that this is, again, challenges with our young ones in regards to that they are participating in behaviors that's unacceptable as a community. A lot of the driving forces for the auto thefts and the carjackings are young ones. That opens up another conversation. The Milwaukee Police Department is very good at bringing those young ones to justice, meaning that we get ahead of what we had a spike over the summer where there was one individual who had numerous carjackings under his belt. We brought him to justice. We did a press release. It was back in July, and the numbers went down. But the unfortunate thing is there's other youths who slipped into that role where it was left off and engaged in this behavior. The question that we should be talking about is why? This is something where it's a crime of opportunity. It's an impulsive crime, and there is a problem that our youth are willing to take these risks to be involved in these type of behaviors. So we really working with our community group. We have what's called a weekly public safety review, where we sit down with a lot of our community partners, the Office of Community Wellness and Safety. We sit down with probation and parole, trying to get more of a wraparound approach, because we're not going to rush our way out of this. We do a very good job of bringing those who are bringing harm to our community. The unfortunate thing is there's so many youth who are willing to take that risk, which is unacceptable. And so trying to make sure that we are not only focusing on those who are doing harm in our community, but what are other tools and resources that we can use and collaborate with to have a sustainable and long-term impact.
What are some of the things that we can do as citizens, particularly when it comes to those auto-related crimes?
Mm-hmm.
What things can we do to help you do your job better?
So one of the things that we talked about in many different press conferences is, one, pay attention to your surroundings. One of the things we hear for some of these youth engaged in some of these very impulsive and reckless behavior, they get individuals who are just not paying attention. You are in your phone, sitting in your car, looking at your scrolling, whatever you're looking at. There are those data points we get back from when we talk to these young ones. They weren't paying attention, so we got them what we quote slipping. There is a way where you can show vigilance, and that is a deterrent right there. Understanding that, again, leaving cars running and, leaving property inside your vehicle, these are all things that are preventable. And we need to understand that you just got to be a little bit more protective of your property and ensuring that you're not enticing or bringing that particular type of unnecessary attention. So I know we still have a problem with the Kia Hyundais, proper getting the updates for the immobilization,
Right.
That's still going on, or using, some of the more easier manual tools, the club. Those are things that, unfortunately, we have to take a little more time to do, but it has great effects or preventative effects for us as a community that they do not like to deal with hard targets. That's called target hardening. Another thing is engage our youth. Talk to our youth. Be there for our youth. They talk about a village raised a child. There's somebody within your family, within your block, within your church, within your community to engage with. I'm not saying deal with them all, just one or two. And you'd be surprised how receptive they'll be just in regards to being able to have an adult have some type of engagement. The Bader Philanthropies had a sit down with the young youth here, and what they said in regards to helping them navigate this thing called life, be a mentor. They said you don't need to be a doctor or a lawyer
Or police chief.
or a police chief, but being there, showing that you care about their future, but also knowing that they can use your guidance, your experience, your wisdom, and most importantly, your love.
Chief, thank you for the work that the Milwaukee Police Department is doing to keep us safe. And thank you for the tips on what we need to do to help you and to help ourselves.
I appreciate that, Denise. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We're right back in just a minute.